Okay guys, I'm going to go over this as quick as I can. I'm just going to just like talk to you about this, so it's not going to be a speech or anything, but I'm just going to talk to you about it. These particular parts, okay, the bearings I've already got set into it. The rounded side on some of the pictures that we've had shows that this is, we'll call it towards the back, the back side of the housing. I'll call it the extruder housing and bearing assembly. One of the things that I'm unclear of is the slot here for the belt. I'm not 100% sure if that slot is supposed to be down towards, you might say, the table, or if it's supposed to be up towards the top of the unit. Some of the pictures I've seen you've had, it does show that the block, which I don't have here, that clamps down the belt is on top. So I made the assumption, at least at this point, that the slot for the belt goes on the bottom. Alright, having said that, I'm going to go ahead and assemble this real quick as though this is the top, which would be towards me. Again, I've already put the bearings in, and I've actually put set screws on each one of them. So what I've also, just to show you, is the block that we had with the 4 mounting holes here. On the picture actually showed that it would be this direction, so it would be towards the top of the well, I guess I'm saying this wrong. I'll say it's towards the extruder side, not necessarily the top, but the extruder side. What I did, and all of this, and back again to this, I'm sorry about that. These are to the extruder side. We're not going to call it the top, but to the extruder. So it would actually hang in this fashion once it was all together, rather than, shall we say, hanging in this fashion. Alright, so these holes here, I'm assuming, are towards the table and not up, going up away from the table. So back again to just flip these over and so forth. Anyway, alright. Now what I've done here is I've taken the space, and again these had shown where these holes here were towards the extruder side. I have actually cut a window just, you might say, above that, or in this particular case below that, you can call it that. So the extruder will be mounted here towards me, and this window gives the ability to look inside and see if the extrusion or the filament is actually lined up. And that's why I needed to give some access to it, and you'll see why as time goes on. Just real quick, I'm going to go ahead and just very quickly assemble this so I can get on to the next spot. Try not to take up too much time for anybody. And I'm not going to tighten these things down. Okay. Alright, so the next part of the assembly, I'll say, would be the extruder part for right now. And for that, of course, we've got this new bracket that we created. The slot that was cut in here is very handy to put the wires and stuff through, so that we can stuff them inside this opening, and you're going to see that in a second. And then we'll talk a little bit about this space here and possibly what to do with that. But again, since I'm looking at this as being the extrusion side, then this will mount like so. And again, I'm just going to do this very quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Hopefully the video won't be too long, and won't take forever to put up on YouTube. Since this is just for us, I'm going to let this one go. I'm a little bit out of whack on that one. But let's put the I'm going to put the extruder on, and I want to talk a little bit about the bracket. Okay, the extruder bracket that I made is actually completely square inside here. The NEMA 17, of course, is designed where it has kind of a bevel on either side. Arve had drawn a diagram of making a bracket that would actually conform and follow that radius that's there. It's actually flat radius. However, I would recommend that maybe if we do anything, if we wanted to take and make a flat radius on this side of a bracket, that would be fine. But I'm going to recommend leaving this square. What that does is give us this area to where I can stuff the wires through on this side to actually dress it up a little bit. So I would really like to have the bracket made either just like this, or we have it radiused on one side and have it actually give us the ability to route some wires through here, really just to take and dress this thing up. Alright, so mounting this thing, yeah, and I want to remake some of these brackets, and it turns out that we really don't need this hole, or actually we don't want that hole because it would interfere with the fan itself. Now, I'm going to go ahead and, so I've actually routed these wires already, and I've wrapped them up. You can kind of see that I've wrapped them up. Let me stuff them down inside of here, you know, to tuck them out of the way while I put the extruder, while I mount it. Oh, come on. Alright, and now of course these screws are next. If you hear my dog in the background, it's because I've got her locked out of the basement because I didn't want to deal with her. This is the time of night that she thinks I'm supposed to be playing with her, so she tends to yell at me a little bit. Alright, now notice that, you know, of course there's a lot of wires here, but one of the things I do want you to see and notice is that now this window here gives us, hopefully you can see this in the camera, will give us access to the extruder, and in particular the holes that the filament needs to go through, and the slot in the back will give us the ability to take and deal with that as well. Hopefully you can see that. I'm not seeing any of the video, I'm just having to assume that I'm in the right place, so bear with me on that. Okay. Okay, so the next thing is, I'll call it the top plate or the bottom plate. Well, it's actually the top plate because the extruder actually sits on the bottom of this. What we have now are these fittings that Arve suggested I get for tubing in order to take and run the extrusion or the filament down through. And I went ahead and then got some bigger fittings. They're 5/16 that I'm going to mount here, but the reason I got the 5/16 was for the this tubing, and it will fit directly on to here like that and give us a you know, a tight clamp. And of course this is what I'm using for my wires, like so. Alright, so what I'd be able to do is run this down through here and then into here, and that will go into here, and I'll show you how that mounts here in a second. So this will take and mount then. I'm going to tuck this back inside because I'm going to mount it like so. Anyway, so this is going to take and go on here, and it will mount like so. And like I said, I'm not tightening any of this stuff down right now, because this is just all for more or less show and tell. It's just so we can kind of get an idea of what's going on. Okay. Alright, so you kind of get the picture of what's going on there. Let me tighten up Extruder, because I'll need to in order to go on to the next step. So very quickly tighten these up. Alright, so now what we have is, you know, a top. You have the top, we have the bottom. We now have a window in here, so that when we actually have the filament going down through the top, we'll be able to make sure that we're fishing it into the back here. The reason I'm saying all that is because I also want to mount a back plate on the back of this. These holes were for the original tubing, but I no longer will have these. The main reason for actually wanting to have a back plate on here is really just to take and dress this out and to keep all of the wires and stuff inside. Because what I'm able to do now is by having having this configuration, I can run my wires inside of here and screw this down like so. Of course, clamp that in, push it in, which now gives us a tight pull. And for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and tuck those inside, like so. And right now, I'm not going to take and put a panel on the back, but I do want to go ahead and, before this video runs out, is show you this little feature. Of course, these are the side brackets, the Acme screw nut, the bearings and so forth in here, and there's one on either side. Of course, the linear rails, and I'm going to feed one into one side, and you won't actually be able to see it per se. Here you can kind of see how I'm pushing those wires down underneath. They'll go underneath the bar, and I'm going to get rid of most of the wires as I connect them, and I may actually put a small circuit board with some screw down ties in here, so that we can very easily screw down our wires and then take them out at any time. Have a small circuit board, and these shorten up these wires and so forth. Now, as you notice, as I run this thing through to the other side, then I have a pretty decent looking configuration. And again, I'll get this. Okay, and it appears that it's going to work out pretty good. What I can do probably is tighten this down, heat it up so that it remains small. But if we say that this is all the way to one end, and call this one end, I have enough pull to go actually all the way across 18 inches. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this all the way out, probably not, to the other side. Now, there is some tug on it, but I'm really hoping that with the NEMA 23s that it's going to be okay, because, well, just that, I just hope it's going to be okay. But I think I can actually have one on each side, and in some respects, if I have one on each side clipped in, it will act as a spring, and it'll pull, you know, it'll actually pull and push. So you always have the spring that will actually, kind of a spring tension pulling in all directions, so that you kind of equalizes or takes a lot of the weight off, simply because the coil is acting as a spring and giving us equilibrium between the two. Okay, see? Alright, well, and then of course the last thing is once it's all done and wired up and everything, then we would take and put a back plate on it so that we actually can in fact hide and dress up the unit so that there's no wire sticking out. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that, and that's the configuration that I'm looking at. So hopefully you guys understand and see. I'm just kind of giving it a flip around so you can kind of see what I'm up against and what I'm doing and how I want to dress this thing out. Obviously we'll be talking about this some more, and hopefully I can get this video in place. Thanks guys. Okay.